It's time for Reason.
The cat's out of the box, ladies and gentlemen. The hidden secret agenda that actually agencies are doing well, that we've increased spending across the board 1% to 2% every single year for every agency in the state government. If they continue to try and rail on the same things the way they've been doing for years, they're going to fail because people are beginning to wake up and realize that they have been lying. The propaganda they've been spouting has been not true, and that they're going to get in trouble for it.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Good morning to you. Welcome into the Voice of Reason right here on the Mid-America Network. Can you really believe that it's Thursday already this week? I know election time is kind of an exciting time of the year, but it makes the week go by so fast. It's already Thursday. We're already 2 days out from the election. People are already coming down from it, and we have so much to get to. Looking forward to what's to come in the legislative sessions, what's to come in the midterm elections next year, what's to come in the governor's races. We have so many people signed up. We have a long list of individuals that need to be coming on the show here very, very soon. It's going to be a hopping time for the end of the year. I know that a lot of people try and tune out a little bit around holiday season. They're focused on the families. They're focused on non-political issues because it's too frustrating for them. But try, if you can, try to stay focused, try to stay tuned in as much as you possibly can. We're going to be talking to so many people over the next couple of months. It's fun. I've been reaching out to a lot of individuals, and it's going to be a blast. So stay tuned in. You're not going to want to miss a single day of the Voice of Reason. Welcome into it here. It is Thursday. It is 8 minutes past the hour. Welcome aboard. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, I'd love to hear from you. We're going to play at the bottom of the hour. Stay tuned in. We're going to play our interview that we did yesterday with Matt Schlapp. He is the president of the American Conservative Union. For all of you that may not be in the Wichita area, in the western part of the state, outside of the state, if you have an opportunity, I know it's kind of last minute now, but if you have an opportunity today, highly encourage you to try and make it to Wichita this afternoon. Starting at 4 o'clock, there's going to be a rally. If anybody, show of hands, if anybody's been to the Conservative Political Action Conference in Washington, D.C. that happens in February every single year, it is the largest conservative rally in the country. It is huge. It's phenomenal. It's so much fun. And they're going to be holding a rally here in Wichita at Wichita State University this evening. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's totally free. Totally free. All you got to do, go to conservative.org. You can register for free, get your ticket, and you can show up. It's going to be a big rally. They're going to talk about Reagan's peace through strength. And is that still valid in today's times with today's issues? It's going to be a great rally. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'll be out there tonight. So if you have an opportunity, conservative.org, go and register. We're going to talk with Matt Schlapp, president of the American Conservative Union, one of the oldest conservative organizations in the country. And we'll talk to him coming up at the bottom of the hour. We'll play that interview. So stay tuned in for that, as that's a really cool rally. I always say if you need to recharge your political batteries, this is the time to do it. If you need that recharge, if you're kind of lagging, if you feel run down, if you feel exhausted, if you feel frustrated with the political system, with maybe the elections and some of the outcomes, if you are just angry with the way things are, and you just need that refuel, that rally, that recharge of, hey, I feel good, I'm ready to go again, I'm ready to become that activist again, this is the way to do it. So we'll play that interview with Matt Schlapp coming up at the bottom of the hour. Also, in 8 o'clock hour, in the third hour today, I know some of you, that doesn't really matter to you, but Mark Walters, host of Armed American Radio, will be joining. We'll play part of that interview tomorrow morning for everybody else that can't listen to it today. We'll replay some of that tomorrow as well, because that is a great interview. I always love chatting with him when he comes on the show, since I fill in for him quite a bit, and it's a lot of fun. So we go back and forth, and he'll be joining us today on the show. I got a few messages by the way, on Twitter. If you want to reach out, you're more than welcome to do so. I need some more followers on Twitter. I don't do the tweeting thing a whole lot, but we need some more followers. So if you go to Twitter, if you are on Twitter, just if you go to Hoosier Reason, or you can search in the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier, you can find it. You can follow me on there. I got a few messages yesterday saying, wait a second, we're really frustrated about some of the election results that happened on Tuesday locally with sales taxes, because there were a few places throughout the state of Kansas that actually raised the local sales tax. This is coming, by the way, right after the criticism from Democrats of the fact that at the state level, they're wanting to lower sales tax for groceries and for food, which I agree with and believe we should, but they've been very critical of that. Then we turn around and we raise local sales taxes. And I can see that, although I'm not necessarily going to criticize in that sense. Hear me out. The local sales tax, if we're going to do a tax anywhere, I would have it rather be done locally as opposed to going to a big government at the statewide level or at the federal level, because the local level is a little more transparent to where you know exactly where it's going to go, exactly what it's going to do, and you and the community get to decide whether it's worth it or not. I'm not going to sit back on a regional stance here and then start attacking somebody for a local sales tax because I don't know where it's going. I don't know what it's doing. I don't know whether it's necessarily needed in those areas or not. Some people obviously believe it is. But there are a few areas throughout the state of Kansas, in Hutchinson and Garden City, and a few other places throughout the state that ended up raising a sales tax. And the really funny part about this is there were 10 sales, as far as I could see, maybe I missed a couple, but there were 10 sales tax, or 10 cities, 10 local municipalities that ended up having a sales tax on the ballot. The kicker, all 10 of them passed on Tuesday. All 10 of them. And they range anywhere from 1/4 cent to a 1/3 cent. So, I mean, they weren't necessarily that much, but there were sales taxes on the ballot. 10 different cities throughout the state of Kansas, 10 different towns, and all 10 of them passed on Tuesday. What's really surprising about this, though, looking at it on the other side, 7 different bond issues for school districts. 7 of them to try and revamp schools, to try and place in different security measures, try and place in different things like that. Only 1 of them passed. 2 of them maybe. I know Rose Hill for sure. I heard possibly Garden City, maybe one of those passed as well. So 2 bonds passed out of the 7 bond issues in the state of Kansas. That tells me something. Number one, that people are more focused on the city issues with reinvestment, with maintenance, with work, with projects that are being done that need to be done potentially, and they see the need for that local sales tax. Again, I'm not going to criticize or support one way or another because you live in that town and you know whether you need it or not. I would rather see a sales tax at the local level, like the town or the city, as opposed to the state level, to where, as you can see, there's not a whole lot of transparency or accountability on where that tax goes. Now, the state legislators obviously would disagree with me because they would love to see more money coming into the state. They would love to see more projects being spent at the statewide level. They would love to see a heck of a lot more money being spent when it comes to statewide projects because they'd like to be able to consolidate at the state level. That's not going to be the case, and we don't support that anymore, and people are beginning to wake up. I still see these elections that we saw on Tuesday as a success. There's a story I'm going to talk about later today about how the Democrats are using this success in the Virginia governor's race, which, again, I question how that's a big victory for the Democrats. They're using that quote-unquote momentum to say the Republicans are torn on whether to back Trump and support Trump in the elections or whether to distance themselves from Trump in the elections. And that's going to cause a big stir when it comes to tax reform, because now Republicans are up in arms on whether they're actually going to support the tax reform or not support the tax reform because they don't know whether they should piggyback on a Donald Trump proposal. And that's the story that's coming out. And all of this is lies. It's not true. And if they are feeling that way, then they better get back on board with the Republican movement that is the Donald Trump movement, coincidentally, right now, or else they're going to be in the wrong. They're going to lose. But at the local level, I see this as people are beginning to wake up. People are beginning to realize what's going on, especially when it comes to education. Number one, that the focus is back on the local front, where 10 out of the 10 sales tax amendments and ballot issues that were on the ballot throughout the state of Kansas, all of them passed, every single one of them, meaning that people are focused more on the local level. On the other side of it, the fact that they tried to raise bonds, and many of these bonds may have been expiring bonds, and I mentioned this briefly yesterday, the fact that some of these bonds they had in place before, they're out 8 to 10 years for the school district, they're out for a long period of time, they're paying on it for years and years and years and years and years, and by the time the bond actually expires and they pay everything off, then what they had replaced in the first place is broken again or needs upgraded or needs maintained, so they try and renew that bond in order to extend it out, and it's a long term again, and then by the time that you pay it off and it's done, then they just try and renew it so they can continuously have that, so the money never comes back in your pocket. It's a cyclical form of over and over and over again, you'll just never see that money. And then they try and raise it again and try and do a separate one because normally once a bond gets into place, it's not going to go away because they just want to renew it every time it expires so they can continue on with that maintenance and they can continue on because now they're dependent on that money. The shocking factor is that out of the 7-8 bonds in the state, only 2 of them passed. Rose Hill and 1 in Garden City. And there were 2, by the way, out in Garden City as well. One of them for athletic fields, which did not pass, and one of them for security and maintenance, which did pass. So people are beginning to wake up that, right, and hopefully what we've been talking about has been helping this discussion, saying, number one, though we're realizing the school districts have gotten the most money they have ever received before over the last 8 years. We've never seen a budget cut at the state level for education. Just hasn't happened. If you hear someone say that, then you know they're lying or they're just ill-informed. And not only have they gotten and received the most amount of money they've ever received, but they also have the most amount of cash reserves sitting there as well. And imagine you, as the worker, as the constituent, as just a citizen trying to go to work, take care of your family, put food on your table for your family, and you have the taxes coming out. You have statewide taxes coming out for education. You have sales tax coming out for education. You have your property taxes coming out for education. Then they try and raise the bonds and say, we need more money. We need another bond. So more money is coming out for education. They have their hands in every bit of tax at the local and the statewide level, and then they ask for more. People are beginning to wake up. And out of the 8 different bonds in the state, only 2 of them passing for education. I think people are starting to say, wait a second, I think you got enough. Let's do this in stages and actually do it maybe the proper way and save money to spend it as opposed to getting in debt to do it. This is the Voice of Reason. Stay here.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason right here on the Mid-America Network. Happy Thursday morning to you. It's a pre-Friday celebration. Let's carpe diem all over this place. Let's make it a good one. Get pumped up for the day, which is what we like to do here on the program. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. By the way, just my opinion when it comes to the sales taxes at the local level, I'm not a fan just because of the fact that we have so many taxes already. I would say that if they were in my area, I still probably would have voted no, even if I see the necessity for a sales tax to some degree, just for the fact that I would want the state taxes to go down first before I raise my local taxes. You got to have an equal balance there. I mean, I get the necessity for some, and if you feel that there are projects that need to be done at the city levels or town levels or whatever, I mean, at local municipalities, I get it. And that's where I think it should be done if it needs to be done. But before you do it, you got to, in my opinion, you got to stop and say, wait a second, I need the state taxes to go down first or the federal taxes to go down first so that way I can compensate in order to be able to maintain and be able to do the local taxes when they arise. 721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Let's go to the phones here. Shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
This is Pete.
Hey, good morning, Pete. How are you?
Doing well. A good Friday Eve to you. This whole thing with the school bond issues, we had one up in Newton where I live.
Yes.
And we shot it down. And frankly, if, for example, if you're a truck driver, you have equipment expenses. And you charge based on your equipment expenses, and you put money aside because you know someday your equipment's going to need to be replaced.
Exactly.
Where are the school districts doing this? They just blow the money as fast as they can get it and then put their hands out for more. I'll even go a step further. I'll even go a step further and say they do have the money because, as I mentioned before, right now we have a record operating cash reserve sitting in school districts right now. Statewide, it's hit $2 billion of cash reserves
operating cash reserves is sitting in the school district waiting to be spent for a time. I was talking to our affiliate out in the Garden City area, and they had mentioned that their operating cash expenses, they have close to 4 or 5 months worth of operating expenses set aside in their emergency fund. In the Wichita district here, we have close to $120 million in operating cash reserves in this area. So the school districts even have the money to be able to front these things and then be able to refill it up. The problem is they just don't want to. They're afraid, which this will never happen, but they're paranoid that because the evil, terrible Republicans at the statewide level are going to try and fight some of the education spending, that they're going to shut down the schools and that they're going to have to use those operating expenses just to maintain and coast for 4 or 5 or 6 months until we reopen up schools again, which is never going to happen because even if the Republicans do butt up and block up, the Supreme Court will never shut down the schools. It'll never happen. And we need to make that very clear, but that's what they're concerned about. But we do have the money. We could do all these operating expenses and improvements without even having to do any bonds or spend any additional money because they have it sitting there waiting for it.
Well, exactly right. And that point you made about the Supreme Court and everything, their whole argument that the school districts make about the evil Republicans wanting to cut their funds is a red herring because the Supreme Court always has overridden what the legislature's done, and so that whole argument is a red herring.
Sure. No, I agree. And the good thing is, again, I think that people are beginning to wake up to this. This is why out of the 8 bonds that happened in the state of Kansas on the ballot in the elections on Tuesday, only 2 of them passed because the rest of the people said, no, wait a second. We're waking up to how much money the schools are actually receiving. You guys are getting money from our state income tax, from our sales income tax, from our business income tax, from our property taxes, and then you want to add an additional bond to continue to do improvements when you guys are sitting on cash reserves right now. We need to start holding off on actually giving you guys more money.
Well, the other point about these cash reserves, that money ought to all be scooped up. This isn't a for-profit venture for these districts.
Sure.
If they get their allocation, and it should all come from the state, they shouldn't be squirreling away taxpayer money.
I agree. Now, I would say that they should have a little bit of a cash reserve. Let's say that they have a fire in a building and they need to do an emergency repair or something of the case. I mean, something always happens. To have some kind of money stashed away is a good thing, even for the government, I would think, and even for the government should have their safety net as well in case something happens like a natural disaster. So the local school district should have some money, but it should be capped. And when things like this happen and they want to do improvements, that's the money that they go to, and then they use, like the normal common sense rational approach is when you spend that money to do the improvement, then you spend the next few years slowly stashing money away again, as opposed to creating bonds, getting people farther into debt, paying into it, and then you pay it for a 10-year plan out, and by the time you pay off that bond, it needs repaired again, and then you got to do another bond, and the people never see that money coming back to them.
Exactly. Well, I can tell you, I'm glad the people of Newton said enough is enough.
Exactly. That's what we're doing, Pete. I appreciate it. I mean, people are beginning to wake up now. Again, for the sales tax in the local areas, totally different discussion because people may see the need for that. But the bonds, people are beginning to wake up. I'm sorry, school districts. I know that you guys like your money and that sometimes you do get a little panicky, and some of it is out of your control. But the fact is that when we do have operating cash reserves, that's what that money's for. Let's not get farther into debt. Let's every year that you guys receive money from federal grants, from the state level, from the local levels, and you guys start budgeting out, you set the money aside for the emergency fund, for the safety net. That's what you do. That's what everybody does. On your private family home, you're supposed to have that safety net ready for you, whether it's money stashed away, whether it's the credit card that's cleared off, whatever it is. You have that money stashed away for you. You need to operate that way as the government and as a local school district as well. Don't get people farther into debt because you want to do the improvements. We need the improvements, sure, but let's save up the money for it for long term and then spend on it. How about that process? This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
It makes us stronger every day. And if you're thinking
Andy never shies away from a fight.
Just you try it.
Oh, I'll try it.
Just you try it.
You'll feel it when I try it.
I'd like to see you have at it.
Would you now?
And now's your chance to jump in the ring.
Are you insane?
Give Andy a call at 316-721-8255. This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
There it is. Welcome into the Voice of Reason right here on the Mid-America Network. Happy Thursday to you. It's a pre-Friday. It's a Friday Eve, whatever you want to call it. Let's carpe diem, make it a good one here. You see the light at the end of the tunnel. That's what you're supposed to get excited about. Welcome into it. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. Let's be a little patriotic today. What do you say? All right, I want to get to this here. It's a little bit long. It's about 10 minutes. But yesterday we sat down with Matt Schlapp, the president of the American Conservative Union. Many individuals may know who that is. It really is one of the oldest conservative organizations in the entire country. He's a great individual. They're going to be doing a rally here in the Wichita area this evening. And if you have an opportunity, even if you're outside of the Wichita area, if you have a chance from 4 to 7 today, come to Wichita, come to the rally. It's going to be a great time. If you've ever gone to the Conservative Political Action Conference, or if you've seen it on TV, it's on ESPN. It's on C-SPAN every single year as well. They air as many of the speeches as they possibly can. It is really the largest rally. I mean, it's in Washington, D.C., and it's in this big, it used to be in a hotel. I think now it's in a convention center. And literally they have 5-6 different areas, 5-6 different venues or conference rooms where they have speakers at a time, and 2,000-4,000 people in there at a time. Just, it's massive. And you get to go down and you get to meet these people. And anytime there's a political speech, you get to hear them. It's really cool. They're doing the rally today. You're not going to want to miss it. This is yesterday. Matt Schlapp from the American Conservative Union right here on the Voice of Reason. President of the American Conservative Union, Mr. Matt Schlapp, on the line with us here. Matt, appreciate you joining us. Good morning, sir.
Great to be with you, Andy, and I'm glad that your CPAC experiences were so great, because I tell you, I love it every year, and you need to come back.
Oh, I definitely have to come back. We need to go out and broadcast out there this next coming up year or something, because that'd be so much fun. It really is. Those were
the largest. That's the largest radio row that you'll see at any conservative Republican event. It is everybody comes to CPAC, and you got to be there. Oh, absolutely. It is. Like I said, I mean, those were some of the most memorable times. I only did 2 years of college because I realized that I just couldn't do the college thing and ended up getting into radio after that. But the 2 years I was in college, I went out there, and you're right. I mean, it is the tons and tons of speakers that you have, the excitement to be able to meet the people, to be able to get books, to be able to get photographs and autographs. It's just such a cool event. How many years have you guys been doing the CPAC convention? Oh, I think since 1973.
Wow.
50 some odd years. I often say I chair a group that's older than I am. So it's really a great honor, and we're really excited to bring our approach with CPAC to Wichita. We're going to be at the Metroplex tomorrow at 4:00, and we're going to talk about what I think is a really interesting and topical area, which is Ronald Reagan's doctrine of peace through strength, is that relevant today? And the argument that we're going to make is it is relevant. We have to have a strong economy and a strong military working in combination to show the world what a better life can be.
A lot of, and unfortunately, my generation, I'm one of the millennial types. I'm one of the younger crowd individuals. I know a lot of people are that listen to the show as well, some of the older crowd as well. But a lot of people, even if they were around at that time, don't remember the talks that Reagan had, the peace through strength, and the Cold War to really show capitalism versus communism on where the money's going to go and how we can be strong based on a private sector. Ronald Reagan was able to cut taxes after Jimmy Carter, was able to deregulate, was able to focus on the private sector, and we saw massive GDP growth and the economy tick back up. We just came through 8 years of Barack Obama with no GDP growth above 3% in 8 years, which is absurd. And less than a year later, Donald Trump's in office, and we see GDP growth astronomical right now, showing that this peace through strength and the focus on the private sector still works, by the way, and it's prevailing right now as we speak.
Yeah, and look, and the other problem with Obama is not just inheriting a kind of a bound-up economy that was growing at a tepid 1 point something percent, But Barack Obama left us with a much more dangerous world. Barack Obama and his predecessors had policies towards North Korea which would actually allow them to become nuclearized. And now they're nuclearized and sending missiles over Japan and getting close to American territory. This is the same policy, by the way, Barack Obama has with Iran, which is they pressed pause for a decade on getting the programs put together to be able to have the missile launch capability in combination with a nuclear weapon, so they can terrorize the globe. They're 10 years away from a missile, but at the end of this ridiculous Iran agreement, they will have a nuclear weapon. And so it's important for us to go back and say, okay, what did America do the last time they were faced with a rogue and hostile regime with nuclear weapons? We'd have to go back to the Cold War. And how did we win the Cold War? Well, everyone thinks we did it by just buying every weapon system we had, and that was important. But it was in combination with Ronald Reagan's understand that our values, our constitutional system, which believes in free markets, and it was a raging American economy where, because we were growing at such a rapid rate, sometimes 6%, we were going to be able to outspend the Soviet Union. They couldn't compete with us economically. And in the end, that's a large reason why they threw up their hands and said, we've got to try a different way of dealing with America because we'll never be able to keep up economically. So for those folks who don't love a big military and are more libertarian on national security issues, it's an interesting moment when a real leader, a real conservative leader, combined our strong belief in free markets and projected strength abroad and saved the world.
Let's take a look at the home front here for a minute. The progressives, the Democrats, the crazy anti-Trumpers that, they take it to a whole nother level. They've made it so personal that if you're a Donald Trump supporter, then you must be part of the neo-Nazi, white supremacist, fascist regime that Donald Trump is, and Donald Trump is just the epitome of that. Have you ever seen such hate before, even during the times of Ronald Reagan when he got a lot of attacks at will, but I don't know that it was really that personal at that time?
Well, let me just say to all your listeners, first of all, they do need to come out to the WSU campus at the Metroplex at 4 o'clock tomorrow. Everyone's invited. There's no charge. You'll have a chance to talk with all the speakers. You'll have a chance to learn, express your opinions, and I'd love to meet everyone. And one of the reasons we do these events across the country is because we've all been called such horrible names, racist, bigoted, haters, simply because we want to vote for Republicans. And I do think that I think it's worse for Donald Trump because he is just the focus of all liberal hate, like probably no one has been since Reagan. But if you go back to Reagan, and if you go to George W. Bush and even his father, every Republican who dares make they have, it's always a similar platform: lower taxes, smaller government, a constitutional order, judges who simply read the Constitution, peace through strength. These are the doctrines that underline our political movement. And if you really think about it, almost every person gets the same charges get made against them. We just had this governor's race in Virginia. Ed Gillespie lost. I'm sad about that. He's my neighbor. He's my friend. We go to church together. He's just a great human being. And the overwhelming response from liberals on Twitter is he's a horrible racist. You know why they're calling him a racist? This is a man who has never uttered a slur against anyone. He's the most genial person you'll ever meet. They're calling him a racist because he wants to stop illegal immigration, stop sanctuary cities, and prevent gang members from slipping over the border so they can terrorize us. This is the world in which we live. If you're going to stand for these conservative values, you're going to be called a bigot. The saddest thing of all is that blurs the line between us and the true bigots. There are, of course, intolerant people in our society, and they should be called out, but they use the term so often that it becomes meaningless. But it's very hurtful to the individual. If I go on CNN or MSNBC, the question of race is raised within a couple of minutes. I was on a show the other day with literally the theme was the reason why the response in Puerto Rico was quote-unquote slow, or in the Virgin Islands was quote-unquote slow, was because they're dominated by people of color. I had to go through these questions in an interview on MSNBC about, does Donald Trump just not like Hispanic people, and do you guys not like Hispanic people? I'm married to a Latina. It's so offensive.
Mm-hmm.
It's so disgusting that that's how they look at the world, and it really needs to stop. It has to stop. But beyond that, I personally am not going to take that. Donald Trump, when you call Donald Trump a hater, he says your mama wears combat boots. He just decides that he's not going to take it. And I do think there's a moment in America where a lot of us are saying we are tired of being called the worst names imaginable just because our politics differ. Look, when the American people see the amazing radicalism of where the modern Democratic Party wants to go, we win.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, sometimes when we win and we get into government, we're pretty incompetent at government because we're kind of the anti-government party. So we've had our failings, not, repealing Obamacare, and there is some concern around this tax bill. So, we're not perfect by any means, but the country is still a center-right party, and thank God for the states like Kansas, which I very much miss living in because it's filled with good, practical, common sense folks, and those types of voters realize when they see the radicalism of Obamacare, they see the radicalism of Iran getting a nuclear weapon, or see the radicalism of a Supreme Court that no longer looks at the Constitution but uses their own notions to decide things. They reject it, and I think this country will continue to reject it. But I will tell you, we're in mortal combat for the heart and soul of the country, and I'm still kind of shocked that Donald Trump is the president and that he got through all of that to become the president.
Sure.
But the more I see us battling politically, the more I wonder if he's just not the very right president that we need to try to take back some territory that we lost over the last 8 years.
There it is. That was Matt Schlapp. He's the president of the American Conservative Union. He joined the show yesterday. The event's today in Wichita. If you want to go to it, you're more than welcome to. It's free. Just register at conservative.org. Lots more coming up here, wrapping up hour number 1 of The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
There it is. That was the, got a headache already now. Thank you very much. That was last night, the liberals scream at the sky day for the 1-year anniversary of President Trump getting elected as president of the United States. And there were rallies all around the country, people screaming at the sky, screaming at the top of their lungs in order to protest Donald Trump for 1 year of being president of the United States. And we call them children for a reason. I've called them 8-year-old children for a while now, and that's exactly why. You don't like what's going on, so you throw your temper tantrum. And what better way than grown adults to stand in the middle of the street and scream their head off because they don't like who's in office because they disagree with them. It's a terrible, horrible thing, right? 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Just imagine what we've been through this last year. And thanks again to Matt Schlapp joining us from the American Conservative Union, because these types of rallies are what empower us and what refuel us after hearing about Scream at the Sky on a daily basis, hearing about people protesting Donald Trump on a daily basis, people telling us that because we're a Trump supporter, then therefore we are by default, without any question, without any any examples or any type of evidence in any way, shape, or form other than you're a Republican and you're a Trump supporter, then you are, by default, a racist, a bigot, a homophobe, a Islamophobe. You are the lowest of the low in the country. I told you this before. My brother went to, I don't think he does anymore. Oh, yeah, he does. He goes to Fort Collins for college up in Colorado. And he had mentioned that one of the classes that he took, I don't even remember what class it was, some ethics class or women's study class or something, the professor had told him that because he is a white male and because that we still have our parents that are not separated, that he is the problem with society. That not our family, that it's not because, we have the white privilege apparently. So, but because of the fact that he is white, he is a male, he has parents that are still together, he has not gone through the trauma of divorce, he is not a minority in any way, shape, or form, then he is the problem with society. Because they have no thinking cell in their brain. Progressives, being a progressive. They don't get it. And that's their mentality with any type of Republican or Trump supporter that you hear about now. If you're a Republican, which again, hey, don't get me wrong, I was not a Trump supporter in the primaries. I'm not just one of those blind followers of Donald Trump here just because of. I know a lot of people still don't like him. And I find it very ironic that some of the most quote-unquote conservative purists, which, again, I'm one of the most conservative individuals you could find, but because I now support Donald Trump being the president and being the head of the Republican Party, now I have forsaken my conservative values because they think that Donald Trump, you get it from both ends here. You get the progressives that say he's the most conservative thing in our generation, which is true to an extent. So therefore, if you're part of the Donald Trump populist movement, then you are a neo-Nazi, white supremacist, fascist, yada, 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 yada. On the other end of it, the other conservatives that still do not like Donald Trump, then you are a left-wing fanatic now and you have given up your conservative values and you don't know what conservatism is anymore because Donald Trump is not any resemblance of conservatism in any way, shape, or form. You get it from both ends here. And I find it kind of ironic because we need to unite as Republicans. Heck with the progressives. Heck with those guys and gals and whatever else they decide to categorize themselves as. Heck with them. It doesn't matter. We know what they want. They want socialism. They want more Barack Obama-style politics. They want more Bernie Sanders-style politics. They want universal health care. They want higher taxes. They want to punish you. They want to regulate everything. They want to save the earth by punishing you as an individual buying things in a materialistic capitalist society. They just want to punish you. What we need to do is we need to focus on Republicans, conservatives. Let's rally. Let's make something happen. Let's get the tax reform done, which it doesn't sound like we're going to be able to do very easily now because, after the big major loss that we had on the election on Tuesday, Republicans, we might have to shy away from Donald Trump because, that guy, that Republican, he lost. And he was like half in, half out with the Donald Trump support or not. 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It didn't work out. We need to kind of separate ourselves from Donald Trump again. I'm pretty sure that that's going to do more harm than it is good. Hour number 2 of The Voice of Reason coming up in just a minute. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
The cat's out of the box, ladies and gentlemen. The hidden secret agenda that actually agencies are doing well, that we've increased spending across the board 1% to 2% every single year for every agency in the state government. If they continue to try and rail on the same things the way they've been doing for years, they're going to fail because people are beginning to wake up and realize that they have been lying. The propaganda they've been spouting has been not true, and that they're going to get in trouble for it.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Good morning to you. Welcome into The Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. It's a Thursday. It's the pre-Friday celebration, the Friday Eve, whatever you want to call it. Welcome into it. There's a lot to get to today. So many things happening. I know it's kind of an off political season, quote unquote, But yet we still have more politics than I think we ever had before. Let me tell you something. I know that a lot of people, as I mentioned in the first hour, try and tune out a little bit, begin to tune out from news talk and political talk during the holiday season, spending time with the family, doing the thing, just kind of being disengaged, wanting to, be a little bit happier and cheerier than talking politics. But we have a legislative session coming up here that's going to be very, very swift and quick. We have a midterm election next year that's going to be very heated. We have a governor's race that's going to be extremely confrontational, let's put it that way. And there's a lot of information coming out right now. In the next few weeks, we're going to be reaching out and talking to as many legislators as we possibly can on the show from all across the state of Kansas and beyond. And I'm really looking forward to doing so. It's going to be a lot of fun. So stay tuned in. Don't go anywhere. And let's spread this message. By the way, you can like you can like the Facebook page as well. The Facebook live feed is up and going. We do have that up coming up in hour number 3. Mark Walters, host of Armed American Radio, is going to be joining us along with at the bottom of the hour. We're going to be at 8:30. We're going to have from Kansas Water Department. We're going to have Earl Lewis joining the show, wrapping up the show today. So a lot to get to. This hour is open to you, 721-8255-721-TALK. If you do want to join in, you're more than welcome to do so. But I do highly encourage the Facebook live feed. Like it, share it. Let's spread the message. Let's get more people aware. I get a message almost on a weekly basis. 1 or 2 people saying, hey, I had no idea that there was a show that talks actually state issues. I had no idea. This is really cool. And we appreciate that. So we're growing. We're getting people to be aware of the fact that there is another outlet to actually talk about issues that aren't just what the media tries to lay out for you, that we're running into budgetary issues, that the education funding is just really, really low and we have to cut and consolidate, that we got to cut the teachers and all the. It's just not the case. So let's talk about it. Let's increase the awareness. And let's get the activism going. We talked in the first hour a little bit about some of the amendments and some of the issues that were on the ballot on Tuesday with the local elections. 10 different sales tax issues on the ballot throughout the state of Kansas and local municipalities, towns, and cities. All 10 of them passed. Now, again, you can agree with it, disagree with it. It doesn't really matter. But the big issue that I found, that the interesting piece of this, was that on the other side of just the sales tax, there were bond issues for education, to improve buildings, to improve athletic facilities, to increase and grow the buildings in the administration. And out of the 7-8 bonds that were in the state, 2 of them passed. Meaning that I think that we are doing a very good job at success being able to make people aware of how much money is going into education. I see that as success. I like that. 2 bonds passed out of 8 of them for education in the state of Kansas. When you're sitting on record cash reserves in the education school districts, when you're receiving more money than you ever received it before, do we necessarily need to increase bonds or extend bonds or renew bonds or create new bonds in order to spend more money at the local level to be able to increase or maintain or improve or whatever you want to do? Why do we need to sit on money while we're borrowing more money? It makes no sense to me. But that's what they were trying to do, and only 2 out of the 8 passed in the state of Kansas. That should be a sign of success, that more people are waking up to how much money is going in to education. I do have to, by the way, throw in this sales tax issue as well, and how much money and some things that some cities and local municipalities spend on. Now, this is not in the state of Kansas, but just imagine here, this is the scare tactic, and I'm going to bring this up to Mark when we talk to him in the next hour as well. But get this, Bossier City, Louisiana. Their city council voted on funds for a new armored ambulance within the city budget. When you talk about inefficient spending, in my opinion, this may fall into that category. The city council unanimously passed the operational budget for 2018, including the $300,000 from the EMS Capital and Contingency Fund to purchase a bulletproof armored ambulance that they had on the back burner for a while, but because of the Las Vegas shooting, they brought it up. They brought it back to the forefront in order to fund it. Now, if you need a bulletproofed ambulance, which I hope that ours in our local areas are not necessarily bulletproofed or armored, but if you need one of those, then I think you have bigger issues. I think you have bigger problems. I don't know if you're worried about a mass shooting inside an ambulance. I don't know if you're worried about people trying to hijack it and steal it and loot whatever's in it. I mean, it's not like a bank truck where it's carrying the money from the Federal Reserve to the local banks where it needs to be armored. I don't see that being the case. I don't know if you're planning on some kind of civil war breaking out in your local area there, or if you're worried about people stopping it, holding it at gunpoint, going in and stealing somebody's kidney from within as you're driving them to the hospital. I don't know what the scenario might be to need an armored EMS, but that's a nice $300,000 well spent, right? I'm just saying, when we talk about local budgets, whether you agree with a sales tax increase or not, which again, that's for the local municipality to decide if you think you need those projects or not. I don't know if $300,000 for a armored EMS vehicle is necessarily the most important issue that you need. But let's try and protect ourselves, because if you do get shot, then you can go into an armored vehicle to where you won't get shot again. I don't know. 721-825-5721 Talk. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an opportunity right now, more so than I think that we ever have, which is why I'm always the eternal optimist. We always rail on the progressives. We rail on their agenda. We try and find ways to stop them. And I think we have that opportunity. About a week or so ago, and we were on this almost on a daily basis, but about a week or so ago, if you remember, we talked about the options that the state legislators had going into this new session on what we can do to try and stop the Kansas Supreme Court, what we can do to handle the issue with education funding in the state of Kansas, and what our next step's going to be. And I think that door just opened up for us, because at that point we had three options. We could comply and we could just do whatever the Supreme Court tells us to do and allow the Supreme Court to have more control over us the way that we have done so far. The governor can try and take this to the next level, to the higher courts, and try and bail out the legislators, which I said the legislators would like, because that would kind of be the scapegoat to allow them to not take responsibility for their actions and not have to do anything, which is an option as well, I guess. And the third option was that they could actually stand up to the Supreme Court. They could try and address the actual constitutional wording and amend that amendment and try and fix it, and then stop and block and say, yeah, you know what, if you want to shut down the schools, that's going to be on you, not on us. But we're drawing the line in the sand right here, right now, which is what needs to be done. But I don't know if we have enough individuals in the legislature that would actually be able to do that. But the opportunity has arisen to where it's a little bit easier for them to do so, and it looks like we might be actually, finally, for the first time, taking a little bit of the offensive position in this argument. And here's what I mean. Here's the headline from the Topeka Capital Journal. Kansas legislative leaders set aside $400,000 for lawyers. Experts on K-12 finance. $400,000 the legislators have set aside to hire legal attorneys in order to fight this. Now, is that very much compared to what the other side's been doing over the last few years? No, but... and maybe we spent this roughly over the last couple of years as well, but it's still pertinent. It's still important. We still need to use this as the rallying cry to say, finally, we're going to fight this from our level. We're going to actually hire our own attorneys to fight the Kansas Supreme Court, because they are not going to bully us any longer. Kansas Republican legislative leaders voted Tuesday to allocate $400,000 to hire attorneys and a consultant capable of persuasively arguing on behalf of lawmakers. The state financing of K-12 public education complied with the Constitution. Democrats on the Legislative Coordinating Council, which conducts business when the legislature isn't in session, failed to block the GOP majority, earning a majority from earmarking $100,000 to hire former Senator Jeff King to represent the Senate in the school finance matters. The LCC also dedicated the $100,000 to retain a separate lawyer to represent the House on education funding questions. Why have we not been doing, and maybe we have been doing this for a while, but we need to do it more so. Finally, no more. Enough is enough. The line is drawn in the sand. We're going to block you from doing ridiculous things every single year of trying to increase education funding, and we're not going to handle it anymore. Now, if you're going to criticize us, which I know is going to come, watch the Twitter feeds, watch the statements from the Democrats, watch the progressives try and actually block this and say, you know what, this is not the proper way to allocate tax funds. The tax money that's going into the state, we don't need to be signing on to be able to hire legal fees to try and stop a constitutional order from the Supreme Court. You know that argument's going to come. And the response I have is, why have we spent $7 million plus over the last few years from the education funds to hire attorneys to try and get more education funds? The money that should be going to the classroom, while we complain we don't have enough money, the money going towards the resources in the classroom, the money that could have gone towards salary hikes for teachers, $7+ million over the last, 2-3 years, has been done to take money away from the desperate little children that they supposedly want to represent, the innocent children that need education. $7 million that you've taken away to hire legal attorneys and fees and lawyers and yada, yada, yada to be able to go up to the Supreme Court and argue that we need more money. So $400,000, if you're going to try and use that argument, bring it on. Bring it on, I say, because it's not going to work. The line's been drawn in the sand, and you have to step across it if you're ready for war. If you want to try and take this to the next level and continuously try and increase education funding. Now, if we want to talk about the formula, all the power to you, talk about the formula, but not 1 cent more is going to go towards education. 60% of our budget is plenty. The largest amount of money going towards education is plenty. The largest amount of cash reserves in the state hitting $2 billion is plenty. You don't need a cent more. Figure out how to do it at the local levels. School boards, all you new elected school board members here in the Wichita area and everywhere else in the state, figure out how to make your budget work. You know how to do it. Maybe you've worked in business before. Maybe you are a business owner. Maybe you've worked for a company before. You know how the business needs to be able to consolidate, needs to be able to operate with less money every year because expenses go up while you're trying to create more revenue. You know how it's done. We need to apply that in the local school district. So, no more. Let's finally stand up. Let's finally stand strong, and let's fight the Supreme Court decision, whether we do take it to the higher courts, which I think should be done eventually. But the legislature finally now having an opportunity to hire individuals to fight this on the legal front themselves. I give them credit for doing so, and let's jump on board with support on this to make sure that they get it done the proper way. 721-8255-721-TALK. I have not done this in hour number 2 yet, and I think it's time for us to do so. I want caller number 1 right now. Caller number 1 at 721-8255-721-TALK. It's time for our KQAM KGSO turkey drop of the day, to where we give you a Thanksgiving turkey. I have a freezer in the next room over here with a turkey in it with your name on it. All you have to do is call in. Here's how it works. I have businesses, all of our participating sponsors. We appreciate them hanging out with us here. I give you 3 business names. And by the way, it lands on each one of these businesses one time throughout here. So as we go through, you can check off which ones may have been done. And it's all already preordained right here. I know the list on the next one that it lands on. I give you 3 options. You decide which one the turkey lands on, and I give you a turkey. It's really that simple. 721-8255-721-TALK. Give me a call right now. Caller number 1 will get you on here, and you get to choose which business is going to be landing on for the KQAM KGSO turkey drop for Thursday today. Let's go right to the phones here, taking caller number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
Pat?
Hey, good morning, Pat. How are you today?
Good.
Hey, very good. All right, here are the options for you. By the way, all of our sponsors, we thank you for allowing us to be able to do this. We have 3 businesses today. You get to choose which one you think it's going to land on. The options today is Croft Lumber of Heston, Kennedy Tire and Auto Care Center, and Kiter Nursery and Firewood. Pat, which one do you think the turkey is going to land on today?
Kennedy Tire.
Kennedy Tire and Auto Care Center. Let's go ahead and see if that's the case. The helicopter flying above the turkey, dropping. Is it going to land on Kennedy Tire and Auto Care Center today?
Oh, no.
Oh, our first loss of the competition. Appreciate the call, though, Pat. Good. Try again. We'll be able to get you in next time. Let's go to the next caller. Let's see if they are able to win today. Kennedy Tire and Auto Care Center, not the option for today. Let's go back to the phones. Oh, I guess they dropped off. Give me another call, caller. We got to give this away so someone else gets another opportunity. Or Pat, you can try and call back real quickly if you'd like to. 721-8255-721-TALK. Let's get somebody else on here to be able to give away the turkey today. The options: Croft Lumber of Heston, Kennedy Tire and Auto Care Center, and Kiter Nursery and Firewood. And Kennedy Tire is not the option, which means you got a 50-50 chance to be able to win this. Let's go back to the phones here, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Robert.
Robert, how are you, my friend?
Good.
Hey, very good. All right, the three options are, again, Croft Lumber of Heston, Kennedy Tire and Auto Care Center, and Kiter Nursery and Firewood. They chose Kennedy Tire. That was not the option, so you get to choose between Croft Lumber and Kiter Nursery. Which one do you think it's going to land on today?
Croft Lumber.
Croft Lumber. Let's go back to the helicopter. The helicopter flying above. It's going to decide which place it's going to land on. The turkey dropping from the sky. What could it possibly be? There it is. We got the winner for today. Robert, hang on the line here. We'll get your information in just a second. Our winner today for the turkey drop on a Thursday. We want to thank all of our sponsors, by the way. Again, Augusta Flight Center, Just Right Auto Repair, Best Friends Pet Clinic, MJ's Truck Repair of Mound Ridge, Kansas, Croft Lumber of Heston, Kennedy Tire and Auto Care Center, Kiter Nursery, Davis Liquor Outlet, Scott Child's Old Time Clock Shop, Spears Restaurant and Pie Shop, and Derby Mattress. By the way, the turkeys are provided by Jim's Apple Market of Cheney. They're open 7 days a week, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Appreciate them providing that for us. Robert, stay on the line. Congratulations. You won yourself a Thanksgiving turkey. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker KQAM. Again, congratulations to Robert being able to win that Thanksgiving turkey. We'll do another one tomorrow. If you lose, by the way, try and call right back. Try and call back in, and we'll give another one away tomorrow. Stay tuned in for that. We got a few more of those left, and we want to thank again all of our sponsors. By the way, we still have another giveaway to give away today as well. The Dave Ramsey book, Total Money Makeover. If you're trying to get out of debt, it's just great information for you. If you want to stay on top of your finances, the Total Money Makeover, Dave Ramsey's Big Kahuna book. It's kind of a big deal. It's huge. It's wonderful. It's big league. I tell you what. Brought to you by You Build It of Wichita with that giveaway. We'll do that later on in the show today as well. Hour number 3, we got a lot of things happening. As we got Mark Walters, host of Armed American Radio, joining us, along with Earl Lewis, going to be joining us at the bottom of the hour with the Kansas Water Department. He's going to be talking about water conservation in the state of Kansas. Some big news going on that front as well, especially, by the way, when you're getting ready for the holidays, when you're getting ready for the cold weather, and ways that you can conserve water the best way you know how. 721-825-5721-TALK. When we come back after the bottom of the hour, we got a lot more to get to here, along with the tax rates, the sales tax rates that may have been passed here in the state of Kansas. We're talking about the budgetary issues at the federal, at the statewide level. Remember, we may have to raise taxes again come January. You never know, depending on what they want to do. I just saw a tweet yesterday from Jim Ward with the Democrats, also candidate for governor in the state of Kansas, that mentioned that, well, look at this. Maine ended up just passing Medicaid expansion as a referendum on their ballot on Tuesday for their elections. More people want and continuously want Medicaid expansion. That's what we need to do here in the state of Kansas, and he's pushing that big. If we do that, how much more money are we going to have to raise in taxes to compensate for that? We'll get your thoughts on this and a lot more. It's going to be a fun show today. Don't miss any of it. Bottom of the hour news. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM.
It's time for some common sense, sanity, and reason.
You can't handle the truth.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Helps if I turn on the microphone. Welcome back into The Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker KQAM. It's a Wednesday. It's a pre-Friday celebration. Welcome into it. Lots going on today, and you're not going to want to miss a single bit of it. The fastest growing radio show in Wichita, in Kansas, and beyond, baby. We're really excited about it and honored, and it's all because of you wanting to actually listen to the crazy, wacko things that I have to say, apparently. 721-825-5721-TALK if you want to join into the program. People actually, it's funny, people listen even when they don't necessarily want to admit it. I was on a Facebook conversation over the weekend and was debating with an individual on the Kansas Democratic page, the Kansas Democratic Party's page on Facebook, and they had posted something ridiculous. And of course, me being me, I like to throw the wrench in the system, made a comment, and got into a nice little discussion with an individual. And she's like, oh, yeah, I've listened to your show, talk about hate talk and yada, yada, yada. Yeah, I've heard your show before. I listened to that. And I was like, well, call in. Well, I don't listen to all that much. That's why you know the way I'm going to respond to a lot of things here, because you listen even when you don't like to. I know you do. I know you do, even if you don't necessarily agree, which I appreciate that. I encourage you to call in because, as you know, I love healthy debates and dialogues. Now, if you're just going to talk about rhetoric, then I'm not going to listen to it. But if you actually want to have something substantive, then I'm all ears, baby. Let me know. We need to remember, as we go about these discussions on tax rates in the state, tax rates at the local level, when the Republicans are talking about tax reform at the federal level, we need to remember what the Republican mission statement even says, what it actually says, what we're supposed to be fighting for, defending, and working on as a member of the Republican Party, whether we're a constituent, whether we're just a voter, whether we're not even that active, or whether we're an elected official ourselves under the brand of Republicanism. What does it actually mean to be a Republican? And that's the ultimate question. So I brought up the GOP platform, the preamble of the GOP, of the Republican Party of the United States. With this platform, we, the Republican Party, reaffirm the principles that unite us in a common purpose. A common purpose. Moving in the same direction, meaning Republicans, especially in elected seats, fight for the same thing. Not divided because we don't like who the individual may or may not be that's actually leading it. Meaning Donald Trump. Meaning Chris Kobach, meaning Governor Sam Brownback. If they're the leaders that have been appointed to that position, then we unite under a common theme and a common goal, and that's something that we no longer do anymore. We believe in American exceptionalism, meaning that we are unique above any other nation on the face of the earth, and we're proud of it. We believe the United States of America is unlike any other nation on earth. We believe America is exceptional because of our historic role, first as refuge, then as defender, and now as exemplar of liberty for the world to see and use as an example. We reaffirm, as did the Declaration of Independence, that all are created equal, endowed by their Creator with inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Something you don't hear many people talk about anymore, do you? We believe in the Constitution as our founding document. We believe the Constitution was written not as a flexible document, but as our enduring covenant. We believe our constitutional system, limited government, separation of powers, federalism, and the right of the people must be preserved uncompromised for future generations. Something, again, that our Republican members sometimes have failed to fight for and remember. We believe political freedom and economic freedom are indivisible, meaning you get to keep the money in your own pocket as opposed to fighting for it at the statewide level or the federal level or wherever else they want to take your money because they feel they can spend it more so than you and spend on social programs that you may not necessarily need. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what we fight for. When political freedom and economic freedom are separated, both are in peril. When united, they are invincible. We believe that people are the ultimate resource, and that the people, not the government, are the best stewards of our country's God-given natural resources. As Americans and as Republicans, we wish for peace, so we insist on strength. We will make America safe. We seek friendship with all other peoples and all nations, but we recognize and are prepared to deal with the evil in this world. Based on these principles, this platform is an invitation and a roadmap. It invites every American to join us and shows the path to a stronger, safer, and more prosperous United States of America. This is the preamble of the Republican Party, what we stand for and what we do. Now take that to what's happening at the state level, with the largest tax increase in state history to override a Republican governor's veto by members of the Republican Party in the state legislature. Take this and apply it to the federal level, where we have John McCain, where we have Susan Collins, where we have Lisa Murkowski, where we have Republicans fighting a Republican president because they distaste him, they despise him on a personal level, and they'll do whatever it takes to shun his agenda because he just wants to get something done as a business owner, as a business leader, as a business icon, and they want to take that and ruin it and drive the Republican populist name into the ground. And again, I'm not a populist. I'm not a fan of populism in any way, shape, or form. But conservatism, Republicanism, major tax reform, which, by the way, is actually a really good thing. I was looking at a piece here, and this hat tip to townhall.com, but all they're doing is just regurgitating what the Washington Post had, and even the Washington Post is supportive of the tax reform at the federal level now, and criticizing Democrats for their criticism of the tax reform. Senate Democrats have been telling their constituents that the GOP tax reform plans will increase taxes on most middle-class families. That's when the Washington Post chimed in to say, hold up, wait a minute, in their fact-checking that they've done themselves. Top Democrats like Senator Kamala Harris of California and Bob Casey of Pennsylvania ran with the numbers and posted them on their Twitter page. Quote, on average, middle-class families earning less than $86,000 would see a tax increase under the Republican, quote-unquote, tax reform plan. The Washington Post stepped in. Quote, in their haste to condemn the GOP tax plan, Democrats have spread far and wide the false claim that families making less than $86,000 on average will face a hefty tax hike. Actually, it's the opposite. Most families on the income range would get a tax cut. Any Democrats who spread this claim should delete their tweets and make clear they were in error. The Washington Post also went a step further, noting a few positives of the GOP tax reform agenda. Meanwhile, they continue, more than 97 million, or close to 80% of individuals in the country will receive a tax cut. Doing the math the same way that the committees do at the federal level, staff did, we come up with an average tax cut of about $450 for those 97 million households. Tell me, when the Washington Post endorses and actually hypes up and actually encourages a GOP tax plan, why do we have Republicans still stopping it? Why do we have Republicans still blocking it? And what are they using now, according to Politico? Oh, well, you know what? After the election on Tuesday, with the loss of the governorship in Virginia, which to me was expected, after losing that race, the Republicans are torn. We need to shy away from Donald Trump again. Another excuse to say, we don't like his agenda, we're going to stop him. We're not going to allow Republicanism to prevail during a time where Republicans control the presidency, both chambers of Congress, many legislative makeups throughout the states, the majority of the governorships, and we're not going to do anything. We're going to use the excuse that people don't like Donald Trump anymore. We're just not going to step aside. We're just not going to allow it. Apply these Republican platforms, these Republican ideas, the preamble of the Republican Party, GOP.com. You can find the platform in the preamble right there. Apply that to the lack of unity in the Republican Party at the federal level, the major lack of unity of the Republican Party at the state level, and figure out where we're going wrong. Figure out what we can do to actually fix this, because right now we are in turmoil. Right now, while the Democrats are crumbling, they're scrambling, and they're desperate, trying to use the Kansas example of the failed tax experiment in the state in order to hype up their own agenda, which is going to fail miserably, and it's quite comical to watch. The Republicans can't get anything done. Republicans, overriding Republicans in our own state government to do anti-Republican things. That's not where we should be as a state. And the leading state, by the way, as the example, other states around the country are looking at us as the example, as the microscope, as the spotlight of what we are doing here, and we're going the opposite direction, giving Republicans a bad name. We need to fix this immediately. 721-8255-72 and talk. Let's go to the phones here, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
This is Lois.
Lois, how are you today?
I am good.
Good.
Hey, a little bit on the party platforms and how important they are.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody should educate themselves on the party platforms. I lived in Lawrence for 23 years and raised my kids there. And in 2004, when my son was 18, when it was time for him to register to vote, I sat down with him and told him what both party platforms were.
Sure.
And then he went and registered to vote himself. And when he came back, I said, well, what did you register as? And he said, I registered as a Republican. That's what I agree with.
I love it. I love it. No, you're right. The importance of the platform is what's needed. A lot of people don't know what the parties actually stand for any longer. And with the wide umbrella of Republicanism today, it's very difficult to actually define it. But if we go back to the roots, if we go back to the platform, the basic foundation of why the party's there, what they need to stand for, then maybe when we go to the elections and go to the voting booth, we'd remember that with the candidates that are actually there. It's very important to remember what these parties are actually representing for us to realize what we're signing up for when we register for one party or another.
Exactly.
Lois, I love it. I appreciate the call because you're absolutely 100% right. We cannot, you and I've talked about this before, you and I openly choose to sign up for one party or another. You're not forced to. You don't have to. You don't have to register for any party if you don't want to. You openly choose to register as one party or another at the local level. Again, the local politics actually playing a bigger role than anywhere else. The local level, the county party, the state party, because you can make a difference, because you think that they represent your ideals. So whether you're completely engaged and you want to be part of it and you want to be part of the party itself and you want to run and you want to do things, you want to be active and you want to make phone calls and you want to knock on doors or you want to run yourself, whatever the case is, or whether you're just going to be, you know what, I register, I did my part, I'm going to go back to work and just not worry about it. Regardless of it, you want to make sure that your party is representing your beliefs. That's why you openly choose to do so. And when it comes to rallying together with the largest voice, with the largest amount of numbers, with the largest amount of money and support and vision, that's why you rally and congregate as a party, as a private club per se. Understand what they actually stand for. And maybe we should go back to the basics, and I can read the Republican platform as I just did, and then I can read the Democrat platform, and people can choose themselves what they want to be represented as. The problem is, and the frustrating part of this is that when we understand that, we do register as a Republican Party, and then we see people at the state level and the federal level saying, we really kind of need to expand Medicaid. We kind of need to raise taxes to be able to fund these different programs. We're kind of running short with government money, so we kind of need some more taxes. We need to create some more regulations. There's a shooting, so therefore we need to create some kind of new regulation on guns. I don't know if you just saw that there's a new bill being presented bipartisanly by a Democrat and Senator Jeff Flake from Arizona and a Democrat that are proposing a law at the federal level to make sure that the law that's already on the books is actually enforced when it comes to people with domestic violence abuse, like the individual that did the shooting in Texas, in order to that to be documented properly in the registration, so that way if they try to register to get a gun, then it'll pop up. We already have that law on the books, but they're presenting a bipartisan bill to feel like they're doing something productive to make sure that it's actually done. When it's supposed to be done in the first place, they just dropped the ball and didn't do it the way they needed to. I'm not sure how that's going to fix anything, but that's the response. And you can definitely tell the difference between a Republican and a lack thereof a Republican when a Republican feels like they need a bill to reinforce a previous bill to create more government regulation to make sure that they're feeling like they're governing and taking care of the people properly. I don't see that as success in any way, shape, or form, and those who call Jeff Flake, in my opinion, a conservative are sadly mistaken. That's exactly what we're talking about. To override a governor's veto in order to promote more taxes, I feel is a big problem. If you feel like raising taxes because you do feel like you need more tax revenue, then let's discuss that. But when the Republicans, led by a Republican governor, are against that, that's probably not the best time to do it, is it? Let's go to the phones here, shall we? 721-825-5721-TALK. Good morning. What's your name?
Nate.
Hey, good morning, sir. How are you?
Pretty good.
Good.
Whenever you were going through the Republican platform, I just wanted to make a correction. The Constitution is not our founding document. That's the Declaration of Independence.
Sure.
The Constitution is the employer of it and the protector of it. So...
No, you're absolutely right.
There.
Well, yeah, and here's what it says: as we affirm, as did the Declaration of Independence, that all are created equal, endowed by their Creator with inalienable rights of our liberty, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And then it goes to, you're right, that goes into the Constitution and says that it's the enduring covenant, it's the system that we hold up, it's our founding document and our rule of law. You're right, the Declaration of Independence was the declaration of what we're not going to deal with any longer. The Constitution is the document of which we live in under the rule of law. You're absolutely right.
Right. And then the other thing I'd like to make is, we have all these senators who, and ours included, who make a big show of, oh, look at what I'm doing, look at how good I'm being, and yet whenever people are actually not watching, they're as far left as much of the rest. So, we have to be cognizant and really pay attention to what they're doing all the time.
Exactly.
Not just when something happens,
and not just during election year.
To the fire.
Right.
Yeah.
Not just election. You're right. I mean, the Freedom Index score, when that comes out for our legislators here in the state, when we have two of them especially that actually have a lower Freedom Index score than any Democrat in our entire state legislature, and they're Republicans, that should be a major red flag for us to come up and say, wait a second, they're upholding Republican values, or so they say, by being a registered Republican, when they actually vote less so with even Democrats on many issues and actually have a worse rating than even any Democrat in our legislature. That should be a major red sign to say, hey, we need to remove these individuals as Republicans.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And a good place to check is, if people wanted to look and see on a national level anyway, is Conservative Review.
Mm-hmm.
You can see where they stack up and where our guys rate, and it's really not that good.
Exactly. No, you're
we have
right.
A D and an F.
They have a Conservative Review. You're right. They do a very, very good job with those ratings on all of our legislators. I appreciate the call, my friend. No, you're absolutely right. Conservative Review does a great job. I actually haven't looked at that in a while with those ratings, because they're usually like, maybe even in the House, 435 individuals in the House, maybe like 5 or 6, maybe 10 that have an A rating. The rest of them, a couple of Bs and then Cs, Ds, and Fs. Republicans, we have some work to do under the Republican platform. Let's remember what we stand for. Let's remember what we're fighting for, and let's advocate for it. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM. Stay here.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, wrapping up hour number 2. When we come back, Mark Walters, host of Armed American Radio, going to be joining us, along with, by the way, Earl Lewis. He's going to be with the Kansas Water Department, talking about water conservation in the state. Lots more to get to. Republicanism, grassroots campaigning, conservatism, spreading the word in a state that needs to counter what the media's been telling us for such a long time. It's due, baby. Let's make it happen. This is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. Hour number 3 of The Voice of Reason coming up in just a minute. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
The cat's out of the box, ladies and gentlemen. The hidden secret agenda that actually agencies are doing well, that we've increased spending across the board 1% to 2% every single year for every agency in the state government. If they continue to try and rail on the same things the way they've been doing for years, they're going to fail, because people are beginning to wake up and realize that they have been lying. The propaganda they've been spouting has been not true, and that they're going to get in trouble for it.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Hi, good morning to you. Welcome into The Voice of Reason, hour number 3 of The Voice of Reason, right here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. It's a Thursday. It's the pre-Friday celebration. It's the Friday Eve, whatever you want to call it. Let's enjoy it. We're one day closer, can you believe it, to Thanksgiving and the holidays coming up right around the corner. I want to get right into our next guest here, as we have limited time. Bottom of the hour, by the way, we're going to have Earl Lewis from the Kansas Water Department talking about water conservation in the state of Kansas. We're looking forward to chatting with him coming up. But first, it's been a little bit since we've had him on the show, and especially, he's kind of a hot commodity right now, kind of a big deal. And with everything going on lately, this is the guy to talk to. Host of Armed American Radio. You can hear him every evening at 8 o'clock right here on KQAM. You can hear his monster broadcast on Sunday evenings from 7 to 10 live right here on KQAM. It is the man himself, Mark Walters. Mark, what's going on, my friend?
Oh, brother, how you doing, KQAM? I love it. I get a lot of email from listeners on KQAM. I love you guys.
Oh, well, we love having you on here, and I tell you what, with you, I mean, I heard you on Mike Gallagher just a couple of days ago with all these
fun. Wasn't that fun? That was fun. We were cutting up
time.
And having a great time. If you heard the interview, I think your listeners might be interested to know he had taken a call before my segment from some dopey liberal who simply blamed the firearm again for what happened in Texas.
Of course.
And started spouting off all the liberal talking point numbers. 20,000 people every year are killed by guns. This guy was calling from Chicago. And I mentioned to Mike, and I think if you heard the interview, you should have reminded him that let's just say his numbers were accurate, which they aren't, but let's say they are. Give it to him and say, 20,000. A third of that, 30%, we'll say 30%, not a third, but 30% of those numbers come from Chicago.
Mm-hmm. Come from Chicago.
But he doesn't want to talk about that.
Of course not.
He wants to talk about the gun. He doesn't want to talk about crime and what causes crime and the cultural decay and the breakdown in this society permeated by liberal progressive agenda politics that is fomenting this type of behavior.
Mm-hmm. I got to say, and first off, I appreciate you again allowing me when you step out to be able to jump on your show because it's a lot of fun. And when I did that on Tuesday this week, I made the comparison. Just a week and a half ago, we had a terrorist in New York City that walked around in the middle of an intersection in New York City with a pellet gun and a paintball gun. Not one single person could do a thing. They're just driving on by watching this guy. No idea what to do. Can't recognize that it's not a legit gun because they're never around guns being in New York City with extreme gun laws. And he's just running rampant doing his thing. As opposed to then we see what's happening in Texas with a shooter and a neighbor that says, oh, hey, you know what? There's a shooting going on. I'm going to grab my same assault rifle, quote unquote, go out there, shoot this guy, stop him for what he's doing, chase him down the street and end up killing him. There's a big difference between the place that didn't have any guns with citizens and a place that did have a gun with citizens.
And the bigger story there is having to watch the mainstream media choke, having to report that fact. Yeah. And that's actually a beautiful thing. But they try to bury it, and they try to poo-poo it. You had MSDNC yesterday, a couple people talking about how, and I played the audio clip yesterday on Armed American Radio's Daily Defensive. Well, the good guy with the gun didn't stop the murders. Yeah, the good guy with the gun did stop the murders. He was called from inside the church. Look, we can't legislate evil, and you know that. Your listeners know that. Any rational individual understands that we can't legislate evil, and we're actually, quite frankly, powerless to stop evil. We can't stop a madman from walking into a church and ambushing 26 people any more than we can stop a madman driving a box truck down a busy street in New York City and slaughtering 8 people and wounding 26 others, and then getting out and running around with his little paintball guns or whatever he's doing before he gets taken down. Right. We're powerless to stop evil. What we have to understand and recognize, and what listeners have to understand and recognize, is first off that evil in fact does exist. If we fail to recognize that evil exists, we're living in denial, and denial will get you killed. Now, there are some tactical things we can talk about relative to the church as well, too. I was in church this Sunday. Most of your listeners probably were as well, wherever they worship. There are some things you can do. When you walk into a church, notice, most people go into a sanctuary from the front door. Most. Some egress from the sides, but most go in the main door. What do you got when you walk in? You've got pews facing the front of the pulpit, towards the pulpit. You've got 100 people, or however big your church is, in many cases thousands of people, with their backs to you.
Mm-hmm.
Where can you sit in a church? If your church has side entrances, which it does, my suggestion is to sit where I sit. I sit over by the side entrance, 2 or 3 seats in. I don't bury myself in the middle of that church.
Sure.
In the middle of that aisle with 20 or 30 or 40 people on each side of me. I want to be able to get out if I need to get out, and I want to be able to get my family out. I do that in restaurants. I do that when I'm in an airplane. I sit in an aisle seat. Those are just smart things that we can take into consideration. But in order to even think like that, you have to first understand why you're thinking like that. That's because you understand that evil exists. People who walk around clueless, I hope these are eye-openers for them. I really do.
No, you're absolutely right. Now, the argument, and luckily, like I said, God bless that we have a president that actually acknowledges this as well, had mentioned the idea of the mental health issues and talks about we need to address that, not necessarily gun control. And, of course, the progressives are freaking out about that. I have to give credit to the Air Force for admitting that they did not file the paperwork on this individual properly, because now we know where the flaw actually happened. We can talk about more gun control, but you know what? It was the government agency that failed in the first place. But unlike the Las Vegas shooting, where there's still so many questions unanswered, we at least know where the flaw and where the failure happened here, and we can work to making that a little more efficient, can we not?
We can, and in fact, I was talking with Stephen Gutowski from the Free Beacon yesterday about this very topic on Armed American Radio's Daily Defense. I'm glad you brought it up. The Air Force blew it here. And this was a similar, I mentioned the Charleston shooting to Stephen. I mentioned Virginia Tech. I mentioned, of course, the Texas shooting. And he reminded me, he said, this situation is a little bit more akin to Virginia Tech, because at both of those instances you had flawed reporting. It was a systemic failure where some bureaucrat failed in the system to enter the information that should have been entered in, hence why Swing Wing Cho was able to get a firearm and pass a background check. And in this case, why, what's his name here, was able to get, I don't even want to mention his name, was able to pass a background check and get his 4 or 5 firearms, okay? So that was a systemic failure where Charleston was just a human error. Somebody didn't do their job. They didn't see what was in there. They ignored something. They blew it off. They didn't see it. They failed. But the information was in there. In these 2 cases, these are 2 entirely different cases. Now, some scary information is how many other people have slipped through the cracks. Stephen was reminding me yesterday that only one person, there's only been one other case of the military in general, all the military, one case of domestic abuse to this magnitude that's ever been reported to NICS. I can promise you there have been a lot of military court-martials and military cases of domestic dispute that more than likely should be in that system, and we don't know how many they are.
I can only imagine. 721-825-57. Mark, do you want to take a phone call? We got someone waiting on the line here that I think wants to talk to you.
Yeah, love it.
Let's go ahead and take a phone call here. Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, this is Joe.
Joe, how you doing, brother?
Hey, Joe.
Brother, I'm blessed. Hey, you were just talking about the Republicans all of a sudden backtracking, right?
Yes.
What does that tell you about the Republicans and the way that they don't want to change the way the system has been run for the last, say, 50 years? If they're backtracking over 2 guys winning, which we knew that they were probably going to lose, but they're already backtracking as quick as possible to go to say that the Trump administration thing is over. And that makes me kind of mad because we fought so hard. They kept saying we need to win the Senate, the House, and the presidency. We got all 3 of them, and now they're all of a sudden we're making great strides in going forward, and now all of a sudden they're backtracking as quick as possible. That just tells you to me that where a lot of the true Republicans stand, that they don't stand with Donald Trump, and they don't want the system to change. They like the way it's broken. More Democrats have become millionaires since they've been in office than before they were in office. So that tells you how badly the system is broke.
No doubt. Joe, I appreciate that. You're absolutely right. And I would relate that to, the way that they like to feel like they're governing themselves. And Mark, you can take this one because get this. After we see the flaw with the Air Force, Senate, here's the story that I found just a few hours ago. Senators introduced gun bill from both sides of the aisle coming together to make sure people like the Texas church shooter can't legally buy firearms, which I thought, as you mentioned, was already in place. But the gunman in Sunday's mass shooting shouldn't have been able to purchase the gun and was convicted of domestic assault in the Air Force, yada, yada, yada. Republican Jeff Flake of Arizona and Democrat Martin Heinrich of New Mexico are introducing a bill that would make sure people convicted of domestic violence would put into the database. This goes right into what Joe's saying. We have the establishment Republicans that are trying to distance themselves from Trump, which is why the individual lost the governorship in Virginia. The Republicans feeling that we're divided, which we are, and we even have Republicans fighting for more gun legislation and gun regulations to reinforce things we already have on the books.
But you also need to be very, very careful here, and I appreciate what Joe is saying on the call. I think it's a great point, and it's a great topic to cover. You've got to be very, very careful here and understand one thing. The mainstream media is driving a narrative, and if you woke up this morning, what you're hearing from the media is completely different than what you heard 2 days or 3 days or 4 days before the election. Now all of a sudden it's a Democrat wave. Now all of a sudden the Republicans are petrified. Every story on the Drudge Report is how the Dems are going to, they're up there. They're having a satellite radio moment where I can't say what I want to say. Let's just say they're thrilled and their legs are tingling because they won what they were supposed to win. Mm-hmm. And the mainstream media is driving this narrative.
Exactly.
That's pushing people to believe that, oh my gosh, and they're doing that intentionally to demoralize Republicans. But the caller is absolutely right. That's why Steve Bannon, for example, that's why the Republicans are scared to death of Steve Bannon, because they are backtracking. What the Republicans that he's referring to are well known as swamp creatures.
Absolutely. The question is, how do we remove them? We have John McCain right now that wants to stand up against it. We have Susan Collins. We have Lisa Murkowski that openly say, yeah, you know what? We don't like Donald Trump. We're going to stop this. We're going to stop his shenanigans. We're going to stop his agenda. So we're just going to halt the Republican platform altogether right now until we can either get them replaced or we can just do our own agenda.
Well, you pretty much nailed it. Unfortunately, there's going to have to be some attrition. Unfortunately, we're going to have to vote this out. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take 2, 3, 4 more election cycles until this is completed. And Steve Bannon knows it. He's in it for the long haul. So it'll be really fun to watch his strategy in action. But what the press doesn't want to talk about, the media doesn't want to talk about, are the 1,000 seats that Barack Obama lost over his 8-year tenure in Washington, D.C. They don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about the 4 House seats picked up by Republicans or held by Republicans, particularly the special elections over the course of the previous 12 months.
Sure.
They don't want to talk about that. But, boy, they're all over. Is anybody shocked that a Democrat won in New Jersey?
Chris Christie, solidly conservative guy out there. He's really got it going on. Yeah, those conservatives in New Jersey.
Well, it's unfortunate. I have a lot of family and I have a lot of history and a lot of family ties to Virginia. I graduated college in Virginia, lived in Richmond. My sister lives outside Northern Virginia, outside Washington, D.C., and I lived in Virginia Beach. I have a lot of close friends there. Virginia's a blue state now, guys. I hate to tell you this. It's been trending that way for an awful long time. But Virginia is also a case study, literally a case study in why the Electoral College is so important on a national level. You have Northern Virginia, the Washington, D.C. suburbs, Richmond and Petersburg, and then you have Norfolk. Those 3 areas are what turns the state of Virginia blue. Yep. The rest of that state, when you look at the map, is bright red. Save for a little pocket down in Roanoke, but that's inconsequential. It wouldn't be enough to flip an election. That's why nobody spends money there. All the money goes into Northern Virginia. That's what's driving the bluebies in the state of Virginia, but the rest of that state is red. It is a prime example of why the Electoral College on a larger scale is so important.
Absolutely. Mark Walters, host of Armed American Radio. You got one more segment you can join us with?
Absolutely. Love it.
Very good. We got another caller on the line. You're a popular guy, Mark. They want to talk to you here, so we'll take a call when we come back as well. Get your thoughts and call 721-8255-721-TALK. 20 minutes past the hour. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason right here on The Big Talker. Appreciate you hanging out with us today. It's a Thursday. It's a Friday Eve. Let's enjoy it and celebrate. As such, Mark Walters, host of Armed American Radio, on the line with us here for a few more minutes. And with that, let's go right back to the phones and take a phone call with Mark here, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, morning, Andy and Mark. It's Sean here.
Sean, what's going on?
Hey, Sean. Good morning.
Hey, I've been a student of history since 1970 and a student of politics since 1972 on account of Watergate, which is why I was probably pretty near a straight A political science major in college. So I analyzed what happened election night. The next morning, when I heard what happened in Virginia and New Jersey, and I came to a conclusion. And so I'm going to make a prediction for which I could be wrong on, but don't think I am, and that's this: what happened in Virginia and New Jersey ain't gonna matter a hill of beans come next November.
Agreed.
Okay? You got to consider that the Democrats are getting their heads handed to them all across the fruited plain since 2010. So they're going to win one once in a while. All right.
Well, and when they're already anticipated to win in those states that are predominantly blue, that, by the way, Hillary Clinton won in the last election anyways.
Well, what they were saying about this election is the same thing they said all year long before each special election. They lost every one. Number one. Number two, yeah, Virginia's already a blue state because of Northern Virginia. And then so Jersey and Chris Christie is like California and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Right.
That's very true. Sean,
let's also throw something else out there, Sean, too. Democrats' hatred of Donald Trump is so deep that they're coming out in droves to vote. I mean, don't think that I'm talking specifically about the 15 to 17 seats in the legislature. 15 of those seats have apparently flipped from Republican to Democrat. 2 of them are still in play.
Sure.
The split in the House of Delegates in Virginia is going to be either 50-50 or not. And if it is, you've got now an attorney. You've got a lieutenant governor that's Democrat that's going to feed the House over to the Democrats. That makes it a Democrat control in the state of Virginia. But it's not shocking to me, like it's not shocking to you, that the Democrats came out at this election, particularly in the state of Virginia. New Jersey means nothing to me. New Jersey's as blue as it's ever going to get. It can't get any bluer.
Right.
Christie was an anomaly in the state of New Jersey, and nobody expected a Republican to stand a chance anyway. So it wasn't as big a victory. But the media will portray it as such. And they're going to come after us. The gun grabbers are going to come after it as a huge victory for them. The Democrats are coming after it as a repudiation of Donald Trump. And the media is going to beat that drumbeat all the way through 2018. We've got to be smarter than they are.
Exactly. Sean, I appreciate that call. We got just a couple minutes left with you here, Mark. But I describe this shooting, unfortunately, as, not anything that we should parade around in Texas, but also as a victory in some degree in the sense that now we're discussing the fact that a shooting can happen really anywhere when you're not expecting it, even a place of worship, of people going to, as you mentioned, you sitting on the side because you never know what could happen. But in the most places that you would feel protected, you'd feel safe, it can happen there, which is all the more reason why people need to feel like they need to be a little more self-defensive in that sense. I think this is a victory because we've opened up a new conversation here.
Andy, we've been talking about that on Armed American Radio for nearly a decade. You're absolutely correct. You're starting to see that become mainstream now.
Mm-hmm.
The conversation is mainstreaming now. We understand that evil exists and evil can strike anywhere. I wish I had $1 for every time I've talked about, it can't happen to me. I live in a gated community, or it happens to somebody else. Every single time an incident like this happens, even if it's just an armed robbery, if it's a carjacking, any type of crime, I don't mean to make the point that those are small crimes. They're not. But whoever they happen to, victims, these are very real crimes. But the point that I'm trying to get across is we always hear, we don't see anything like that. That never happens around here. Yes, it does.
Sure.
And it can happen to you, and it can happen anywhere. And now you've got an open dialogue of people talking about, because it's been so widely reported, it had to be, the mainstream media now showing you and talking about what something they've never talked about because it blows their narrative right out of the water, and that is that an armed good guy actually played a huge role in taking down this monster before he did any other damage anywhere else, which it is predicted that was what he was going to do.
And they didn't know how to respond to that. I hate to cut you off short here,
No,
Mark.
love it. Thank you, Andy.
No, that's all right. We're running out of time here. Mark Walters, you can hear him tonight, 8 o'clock. You can also hear his live broadcast on Sundays. Mark, we got to get you back on here again more. I know you're a hot commodity right now. As Mike Gallagher said, that what you talk about and what you do on your show is more important than it ever has been before, because we're winning on this conversation, and we're going to continue to do so. Mark, we love talking to you, my friend.
Thanks, Andy. Appreciate it. Have a great show.
Always a great time. Bob Lee, our news coming back. When we come back, we're going to be talking to the Kansas Water Department right here on The Voice of Reason. Stay tuned.
When it takes two to read the news,
I'm trying to warn everybody and nobody takes me cereal.
You're in the wrong place. This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, 1480 AM and 1025 FM, KQAM.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, wrapping up the show today. It's gone by way too fast. I realize as I'm sitting here in the studio, and you can't see this on the Facebook Live, you can see me, but you can't see this. I have papers all over the desk here for all the show prep, everything that we need to talk about, get through, and I only get through about 25% of it every single day. If you look behind me, I got my stack of stuff back there. That's all the papers that I have yet to get to, because we got way too much to discuss as we talk. Just even in the state of Kansas, politically wise, there's just way too much of it. This portion of The Voice of Reason brought to you by Network Consultants. Business owners, listen up. They're an infrastructure company. You have your computers, you have your network. Maybe you have a network printer to where all the computers print to the same place. Maybe you got operating programs that need to communicate between back and forth. Sometimes this stuff has issues. I have the hardest problem with computers and with networks. That's not my thing at all. These guys can help. Network consultants, they can help out with your firewalls and sonic walls, trying to keep you protected from hackers, database safety and security, network communication, VPN, backup solutions, even getting you set up on the cloud so that way you don't lose any of your data if anything ends up happening. They work with small to medium businesses, so they know the importance of how smooth a small business needs to run and operate. This is the side of the business that sometimes does not get the attention that it needs to, and it costs more money and time to fix an issue when it comes up as opposed to just maintaining it in the first place. Give them a call right now. Tell them I sent you, and you'll get a free network analysis. They'll come out and visit your business. They'll review your system, help you any way that you can, even help guide you to manage your own network. Unlike anybody else, giving you the tools to do it yourself as opposed to them doing it for you all the time. You don't have to. You can, but you don't have to. They do have month-to-month plans available. You don't have to give them a long-term agreement. Give them a call. Tell them that I sent you. 316-201-4624, 316-201-4624, or online at network-consultants.com. Appreciate them partnering up with us here on The Voice of Reason. Let's get to our next guest. I'm really excited about having him on here. He is with the Kansas Water Office. He's the assistant director as we talk about water conservation, as we talk about water usage in the state of Kansas. Mr. Earl Lewis is with us here. Earl, how are you, my friend?
Very good. Thanks for having me on today.
Hey, I appreciate you joining the show. It's a topic that a lot of people don't usually, I guess, pay attention to, that's not really front and center, unless, of course, you're a farmer and part of the agriculture community. But water in the state of Kansas, extremely important, and you guys work every day to try and find ways to conserve and use water efficiently. Where are we at in the state? Do we use it properly, or do you think that we have some work to do?
Well, I do think we've got some work to do, but I think we've also made a lot of gains here over the last few years. And I think you're right. You know, most folks don't really think about it. They go in, as long as water comes out of the faucet, or they go and turn their irrigation pump on and water comes out and things are okay. But I think collectively we need to be looking down the road a ways and make sure that we have a good source of water, not only for today, but for future, so our kids can have a good source.
Sure. Being this time of year right now, it's getting a little bit colder. People aren't maybe watering their lawns right now. We're trying to conserve a little bit. Hopefully we don't see a whole lot of people with burst pipes because of freezing and that sort of stuff. But compared to water usage in the summertime, compared to wintertime, do you see a vast difference in water usage in the state?
You bet. As you might expect, most of our water usage is during the summer, whether that's, like you say, watering your lawn or irrigation or any of that kind of stuff. Our water use really goes down in the fall and over the winter. As you might expect, July, August, September really is our big months for water usage in Kansas.
Sure. I hope it's a good time too. I guess we need moisture, we need some kind of precipitation, which we don't get a whole lot of in the wintertime unless we get some snow or ice. But I guess that's really the time to where we can see our reservoirs kind of start refilling and regenerating themselves, correct?
You bet. Yeah, and you're right. Most of our rainfall and most of our reservoirs fill up, say, in that March to May time period. But anything we get over the winter sure helps us out. And as farmers would know, getting some good snow cover on all that wheat would be very helpful.
Sure. Do you know what, just out of curiosity, the amount of water usage on a monthly basis or a yearly basis in the state of Kansas from agriculture, from consumers and residences? Do you guys keep track of that?
You bet. So every year, anybody that has a water right has to submit a water use report to the state that tells how much water they use. And so we total that up. And statewide, we use about 4 million acre feet a year. And so a lot of folks aren't familiar with what an acre foot is, but you think of an acre of ground covered 1 foot deep with water. That's how much water it is. So about 326,000 gallons. And we use about 4 million acre feet a year.
Holy cow.
Yep. And irrigation uses about 85% of that. And then our municipal customers, our municipal folks like Wichita, Topeka, Kansas City, they use 8 to 10% per year. And then we got, of course, industrial and other uses as well. But as you can see, majority is really for irrigation.
There's a lot of water there. Absolutely. I know the Governor Brownback just a few months ago had gone to the western part of the state with Lieutenant Governor Collier, had been working on a reform for the Ogallala Aquifer in order for us to try and conserve that so that way it can start replenishing itself the way it needs to. How well is that going to work, and how much is that going to help out the agricultural community, especially out on the western part of the state?
Well, the ag community is really going to have to lead the way in that, and we've got some folks that are doing that. And I was able to go with the governor and lieutenant governor on that trip, and really what we were talking about with folks that were there is, most folks we've never been able to say that we could have a sustainable system in the Ogallala Aquifer, that we could have a good economy and still have water use out there, and really what we're seeing is because of some of the things the local folks are doing. There's a lot of places in the Ogallala where we could have stable water levels, and that's really a big change in mindset from what we've seen in the past. And again, I give all the credit for those local leaders that are out there really trying to change the way things are done.
Sure. No, absolutely. What are some tips that we can do, especially, as you mentioned, the wintertime we use less water. We're trying to conserve a little bit more. We're not watering our lawns. We're not, some people may be taking a little bit longer hot showers and baths in the morning to warm up and get ready for the day, whatever the case is. But what are ways that we can do, some tips just as a residence, just as a home, as a family, that we can do to save water in order to try and, help preserve a little bit of that?
Well, I think the first key is, just putting some value to the water, recognizing that it's not an infinite resource. We need to value it for what it is. And so, it can be the simple things of when you're brushing your teeth, make sure you turn off the water, take that shorter shower And like I say, if it's in the summer, you're still watering that yard, pay attention and don't just let the timer run all the time. When it's rained, let's make sure and turn that off, and we can make a little bit of change here and there makes a big difference in the long run.
Sure. Technologically speaking here, I know it's probably not really valued to us, but I know that I remember as a kid, they talked about some technology, especially on the coast there by the oceans, of them trying to use the salt water and go through this process to be able to make it fresh water in order for us to be able to use. Is that something that you've heard outside of the state of Kansas that people are beginning to use? Are there other technological advances that have been used to try and make water a little more efficient and accessible to individuals?
Absolutely. And I'll give you a couple of examples. One, really what you're talking about there on the coast is really called reverse osmosis or desalinization. And actually there's a number of places in Kansas that are using reverse osmosis. I think of Garden City and Lakin and a few others that are really using that to try and make sure they have good source of water and clean up maybe some water that wasn't so good. So there's some technology being used on the municipal side. But on the irrigation side, this is probably where we're seeing the most change in the way things are done with a lot of our farmers. Obviously, technology is getting to the farm just like everywhere else, and these farmers today are very astute businessmen and very technologically savvy, and so they're starting to put technology and monitoring into their irrigation. And so actually, I was just talking earlier this morning with one of the folks we have here at our conference, Dwayne Roth, and he lives out of Holcomb. And he's really bought in and done a lot of technology implementation on his farm. And he still grows corn, but he grew 241 bushels of corn on about 5.8 inches of water. Wow. And just across the road, his neighbor grew 230 bushels on 15 inches of water. And so he grew more corn with less water than his neighbor did because of just implementing some simple new technology, and more than anything, paying attention to what's going on.
Sure.
We've had such an abundant supply of water for so long that we take it for granted, and we don't necessarily pay attention to it the way we may on other parts of our life or our business.
Well, absolutely. It's a resource that we don't want to disappear and us waste it and take advantage of, as you mentioned. I mean, even thinking of the new technology of the drones that a lot of farmers are able to use to be able to go through the fields and be able to apply it in specific areas that they feel that need water additionally, as opposed to just doing it covering the whole area. Stuff like that. We're going to see some major progress when it comes to advances and efficiencies when it comes to not only the planting and the growing, but also with the water usage there. So that's really cool, really exciting. Earl Lewis, he's the assistant director for the Kansas Water Office for the state of Kansas. It's great to have you on the show, my friend. I love all the discussion. Water conservation, again, not something that even on the political front that people really pay attention to, but I don't want it to become a scarce resource to where it needs to be politicized and then we just see it not being used even less efficiently than what it already is. So I'm glad you guys are working on this. Thank you for what you guys are doing up there.
Hey, thank you for having me on.
Hey, it's a great honor there. Earl Lewis there, the assistant director for the Kansas Water Office. Let's take a break here. We'll wrap up the show, get your thoughts and calls, open up the lines to you. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, wrapping up the show today. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us here. The Facebook Live is rocking today. Appreciate you viewing that for whatever reason you want to do so. I don't know. Do got the face for radio, which is why I got into radio. So what do? They put a camera right in front of my face. Ha! 721-8255-721-TALK. A reminder for you, if you're going to go to the event tonight, brought to you by the American Conservative Union. Go and register. It's free. It's going to be a fun time here at Wichita State University. And it's starting at 4 o'clock, a little bit early, 4 to 7. Go there, see the rally, get re-energized. The same organization that puts on the Conservative Political Action Conference in Washington, D.C. every February. The largest conservative movement, by the way, in the country. Great organization. With the ACU, we had on Matt Schlapp yesterday, the president of the American Conservative Union. Appreciate him joining us. And that rally is tonight. Go and register. Conservative.org. Conservative.org. You can go, it's register. It's totally free. It'll email you a little ticket that you can print off, and that's what gets you in the door tonight. I will be out there, which is why if you have been watching, I've been dressed up in my suit today and going to have a little fun with that. So I'll be out there. Come and see me, say hi. I'd love to be able to see you and chat with you and hang out a little bit as we refuel our energy, as we refuel our batteries when it comes to the conservative movement and pushing on for the session. We need it, too. We need it. Gosh, do we need it. After seeing what they did at the federal level, which I think is the most offensive thing that they could have done, the Democrats from the state of Kansas lying through their teeth. I've never seen so many blatant falsehoods and lies in my entire life. I've never seen it before. Democrats going to the Senate floor at the federal level and talking about the failed Kansas experiment and bringing up stuff that they never even talked about here. The media never reported on. These guys never got upset about an attack here at the local front, at the statewide front. They've never talked about it. And all of a sudden now they're going up to the federal level and saying that they had to cut these different programs and agencies and they had to cut funding for this and that stuff that they never even mentioned once here on the home front, but now is all of a sudden an issue at the federal level, which is why it's failed so badly here and we can't do tax reform up there. Lies. I've never seen that before. And the Democrats are desperate. And I don't like to use the Democrat term very much, usually, because it's usually an ideological thing, not a party thing. But this is a party thing. The Democratic Party, the Democrats are desperate to not have another Republican take the leadership of governor here in the state of Kansas. They are desperate to not have the Donald Trump tax reform ideas be able to go through. They are desperate because they're crumbling. And they use the example again, which is why they tried to use the example of the governor's race in Virginia and the governor's race in New Jersey as the example of the momentum's changing, the tide's turning. We're going to be able to get some growth here. We're going to get some momentum and feel really, really good because we're going to go into new elections and feel really awesome about the way things happen. In states that went towards Hillary Clinton, and it was a very personal race, in Virginia especially, and the individual that ended up winning the governorship was the lieutenant governor already in very blue districts. I'm not sure how that's a big victory, but to them, being able to get their own people to turn out for their own election and be able to win something they're supposed to do in the first place is a big victory to them. Hooray! We actually did something. So I don't know how that's a victory. And all the talking heads yesterday still mentioned it as a big victory and a big loss for Republicans. It's really not. It's really not. 721-825-5721 talk. We got a few minutes left here, but I do want to, by the way, mention this as you may have been hearing it in the local news yesterday at the Sedgwick County Commission meeting. A bit of a kerfluffle per se, as Richard Ranzau, Sedgwick County Commissioner, made some accusations on Michael O'Donnell. They had a vote to remove him from the chair position, and it did not go through. We'll have to get some more information on exactly what is happening there. But Sedgwick County Commissioner Richard Ranzau said fellow Commissioner Michael O'Donnell had abused his position in an effort to benefit friends, campaign donors, and himself. Ranzau made these allegations before asking his fellow commissioners to strip O'Donnell, the chairman pro tem of the leadership position. The motion died on a 4-1 vote. So it didn't go very far, but the accusations were out there. Quote, from the very mundane issues like our suppliers for trash bags to larger issues like multi-million-dollar land deals, my colleague has attempted to directly broker a variety of deals inappropriately and outside of normal county protocol. The good news is that for a variety of these reasons, the efforts have almost entirely failed, but that does not change the inappropriateness of the behavior, nor does it guarantee that his efforts will not be successful in the future. Whether these allegations are true or not will, come to fruition later on. Time will tell. Michael O'Donnell's response was, well, it's Richard being Richard, and kind of dismissed the notion, and in a 4-1 vote did not remove him from the leadership position there in the county commission. So some internal debate, some internal workings from the county commission, I don't see as a good thing. We're talking about two Republicans right now. And if that is the case, we need to look into it. If it's not the case, then, we need to figure out what's happening. We need to work in unison. And I get that we need to have differences. We need to have the dialogue and the debate and the discussion, which is absolutely desperately needed, along with the public outturn to come out and show their voice and their opinion as well to the county commission. Because right now we are doing some really, really, really fantastic things. We are doing some phenomenal stuff at the county level. We have the opportunity to do some phenomenal stuff at the city level. We have the potential for a brand new industry to come in with the Tyson chicken plant, which is still kind of on hold right now, and a lot of people still trying to butt up against it and stop it from happening. And our county commission is going to have the word, either the yay or nay, to make this actually happen. We need to be in unison. We need to be on the same page. And if there are some issues, we need to address them. If there are not some issues, we need to focus on some serious issues. The county commission right now has a lot of power. And I say that in a good way, not abusing the power in that sense, but they have a lot of power on what the future, the immediate future is going to look like for Sedgwick County and South Central Kansas area. It's going to be a big deal. So let's stay focused. Let's have some big turnout when it comes to the meetings. Let's address some of these issues. If there are accusations, let's focus on it. Let's get it out of the way, and let's move forward as a county and as a community, because we don't have time for backdoor shenanigans. I know it's politics, and politics is played all the time, but let's stay focused here, shall we? 721-8255, and talk. It's a Friday tomorrow. It's the end of the week already. This week has flown right on by. Elections will do that to you. Tomorrow we will replay a little bit of that interview that we had with Earl Lewis from the Kansas Water office in the first hour. And coming up in the second hour, of course, we'll have Mike Furches and all the great guests that we usually do, getting ready for the holidays, talking about, again, community activism. It's going to be a great time. Plus, Dave Traubert from the Kansas Policy Institute wrapping up the show tomorrow. It's a list full of guests. It's going to be a great time. You're not going to want to miss it. Getting ready, legislative session 2018, baby. Yeah, that's the way we roll. This is The Voice of Reason. It's your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM. Have a great day, everybody.